This PowerPoint presentation was created for Arts 493 for the Spring 2016 semester. And it was created by Caitlin Miko, which is of course me. First off is the background. The researcher studied her own artwork from the ages of 3 and 4. As a 3 to 4-year-old, the researcher would say that she was curious, asked questions, explored the world around her, was creative, spent her days at home with her mother, and was keen on being outdoors, drawing, reading, playing with her family, friends, older brother, and dog. The father of the researcher stated, "The researcher at the age of 3 and 4 was a studious child and was keen to imitate." Michael also stated about the researcher, "Liked to write stories earlier. Lots of your early pictures, I think, were short stories of an event." Research goals. The goals of this research paper are to discuss typical development in the art of a 3 to 4-year-old, the importance of art in her childhood, how that importance came out in her artwork, how the research can impact the life of the researcher, how the adults in the researcher's life supported her creativity, how this support can be applied to the researcher's life now. Art study number 1 was of this image here. This drawing was created in her childhood home. As a child, as seen in the drawing and the drawings to come for discussion, are all snapshots in time. In this sense, they tell a short story, as the researcher's father pointed out in his interview with the researcher. As a child, the researcher's mother would have tea parties with the researcher, and the researcher hypothesized that due to the setting and details of the image on the table in the drawing, a tea party is being depicted. The drawing is done in crayon and was probably completed inside the home, either in the kitchen at the dining table or at a desk. By what the researcher can remember, she drew with loved ones as well as on her own. The researcher hypothesized that this particular drawing was created at the age of 4 due to the writing and variety of shapes depicted in the drawing. There are details in the drawing that show that the researcher at the age of 4 is beginning to notice. Some of these details are showing that 2 figures are female by the dress-like articles of clothing the 2 figures are wearing, as well as the 2 figures having longer hair. The artist also added the detailed items like on the table that look like they could be a piece of cake and plates to eat dessert on. Lastly, this particular drawing is the only drawing that shows labels Mom for the artist's mother and CA for Caitlin for the artist. So you can see the labels here. You can see the long hair of the 2 figures, as well as the articles of clothing that look like dresses. These items look like plates. There's a yellow one and then an orange one here. And then it's slightly triangular, like almost like a piece of cake. And then of course it's all on a table. And when I was a child, I even put arrows to indicate which label belonged to which figure. Art study number 2 is of this image. This drawing depicts the researcher and her family traveling in what appears to be a car filled with luggage. You have the maroon car that I do remember my family having when I was younger. And then you have the luggage here. In this drawing, the artist not only employed crayon, but also colored marker. So there's the crayon in this part here, and then the marker up in the sky. As a child, the researcher can remember going to Oregon with her family on numerous occasions. The researcher hypothesized that again, this drawing also captures a moment or memory for the artist. The researcher has a teddy bear that her mother gave her as a young child, which is depicted right here, which helps place the time this drawing was created at around 4 years of age. The other element to point out in this drawing is that the colors are, for the most part, appropriate to the subject matter. This shows the child is aware of what color the items are around them. So we have blue for the sky, the maroon car that I mentioned before. The teddy bear is brown, the wheels on the car are black, as well as the asphalt being black. And then in the front of the picture we have 4 figures: my father, my mother, my older brother, and myself. And again, the females are depicted by having longer hair, and then the males are depicted with having short, spiky hair. Art study number 3 is of this image. The lines are a bit rough and not as developed in the previous 2 images. So the lines in this image are a little bit more rough, as you can see in the dog. The coloring is a bit out of the lines. The wheels aren't complete circles, things like that. The drawing is also of a simpler scene than the previous 2 drawings. The researcher concludes that this particular drawing was completed in the 3 to 3.5 year range. The drawing appears to be done with crayon and again was created in the artist's childhood home. The last drawing to be analyzed also tells the story of a scene. In this scene, 2 females, hypothesized by the dress-like objects the 2 figures are wearing in addition to their long hair, are walking a dog while birds fly above them. The smaller or younger of the 2 figures, perhaps the artist herself, is riding some sort of bike or scooter. So this figure with wheels is the scooter or the tricycle, probably. They're wearing figures that look like dresses, and they've also got long hair again, like in the last 2 images. We have a dog on a leash, and then we also have birds in the sky. In comparison to image A, so the tea party picture that I showed you earlier, the dress forms on the figures are not closed at the bottom. As you can see here, they're just open. By this, the researcher was most likely younger because the shapes are not as, quote, completed or simpler compared to the first image. The proportions of this drawing are also a little more exaggerated than the other drawings. The dress-like objects that the figures are wearing come up quite high on their bodies, as well as the wheels on the bike are larger than are probably appropriate for proportions in real life. So you can see the tires of the wheels are quite large, and then the dresses go up to what would be the tops of their necks. Conclusion. Theory and development. The importance of art in the researcher's life as a childhood seems to be to capture moments and express the importance of events, actions, and the people involved. In terms of development, Lowenfeld created 6 stages of development that can be found in Art, Teaching, and Learning by Contour and Toku. The stages are in Contener's and Toku's text as followed. Stage 1. The scribbling stage, from 2 to 4 years, is the beginning of self-expression. Stage 2. 4 to 7 years, first representational attempts. Stage 3. The schematic stage, from 7 to 9 years, is the achievement of a form concept. Stage 4. The dawning realism stage is 9 to 12 years, which is the gang age. Stage 5 is the pseudo-realism stage, which is the 12 to 14 years range, is the age of reasoning. Stage 6 is adolescence, which is at 4 to 17 years, is the period of decision and crisis. By looking at Lowenfeld's 6 stages of development, we can see that for the artwork that is marked as being created at the age of 4, it fits the stages of first representational attempts. However, the drawing pin is being created at 3 to 3.5 years of age, which is the last one we saw, is a bit advanced for the scribbling stage. The researcher's father did point out that the researcher was a bit advanced for her age. So the 3-year-old drawing could be placed in stage 2, which is typically 4 to 7 years of age. If this is the case, then some stages of Lomefield's development steps would be reached earlier. The researcher believes that since there is a great deal of representational attempts, the researcher as a child and her artwork meets Lomefield's 6 stages of development, even if in some moments the researcher reached a particular stage at a younger age. Conclusion. On a personal level. The impact of researching and analyzing my own personal artwork from my childhood is significant to me for my future and on a more personal level. To begin with my career, I want to be an elementary education teacher, and art and creative activities play a vital part of a young student's learning process. In order to teach art with passion and to convey importance for it, it is key for me to think upon how art played a role in my life, especially as a child. In addition, my parents and brothers have always been supportive of my creativity since I was a small child. It is essential that I reflect upon this support and encouragement and how it made me feel so I can give that back to my students. This last concept also applies to my life on a more personal level when I become a mother myself someday. As a teacher and mother, being aware of development stages is also important to see where my students or kids are depending on their age. I feel that this research project has reinforced in me that every child develops differently, and that supporting a child's creative process can have an essential and positive impact in their education and life, like it was for me. Here are my references, and thank you.